Hello there. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Marcia Butler. I'm the webinar director here at Advice Chaser. Before we introduce our guest and get started, I need to do a bit of legal housekeeping. Advice Chaser, the host of this webinar, is not a registered investment advisor. We cannot and do not give financial advice. Today's presentation is for educational purposes only and cannot be considered advice for any person's individual situation. Advice Chaser regularly hosts informative webinars, such as this one, featuring a variety of knowledgeable professionals, many of whom are licensed advisors. Any opinions, ideas, jokes, or principles expressed by presenters are their own, and however true, funny, or interesting, are not endorsed by Advice Chaser. Please do not act on the information you hear today without consulting a qualified financial professional. We're thrilled to bring you today's educational presentation. Attendees are muted, but if you do have a comment, you're welcome to put that comment in the chat. And let me make sure that is turned on. Okay. Also, there will be a lot of information shared today, and we are recording this presentation, so you are going to receive a link to that replay in your email, so no need to take notes. You can watch it again if you so desire after the webinar is complete. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to our speaker today. Dwight Davenport is the managing principal at Greenport Capital Advisors. Leveraging over 30 years of experience in wealth management, Dwight offers expert insight and guidance to his clients. Before co-founding Greenport Capital Advisors, Dwight was a principal at Vodia Capital and a principal at Penobscot Investment Management in Boston. In addition to his experience in wealth management, Dwight has a strong track record of successful entrepreneurial ventures in the finance industry. Dwight earned his BA from Norwich University Military College of Vermont. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to you, Dwight.
Great. Well, thank you, Marcia. I appreciate it. As Marcia mentioned, I'm Dwight Davenport, and I'm a co-founding principal of Greenport Capital Advisors. And we are based in Concord, Mass, just a little bit outside of Boston, Massachusetts. I started working in the area of special needs trusts in 2008 when we took over a number of trusts to manage for a Boston law firm. And I quickly realized that this was the type of work that was extremely rewarding and fulfilling for me, because I could clearly see the impact I was having on improving the lives of our clients. And that part is rewarding because there's no ambiguity to the positive effect that we can have. And it's not a relative calculation. It's really more of an absolute calculation. It's something you can actually visibly experience and feel. So that's very fulfilling for me. It's something we take a lot of pride in, and we really enjoy working with our families. I want to just give you a couple of disclaimers, a couple of things to add on to what Marcia was saying. We are a registered investment advisor. We are not attorneys. We work with attorneys extensively. We are held to a fiduciary standard of care for our clients. And that means that we are legally obligated to make every decision in the best interest of our clients. And of course, we would do that anyway, but that's just a legal, that has a legal, consequence to it as well. What we're going to talk about today is, if there's any discussion about investments, it's not to suggest that any past performance is going to indicate any future results. And that, we're just talking about special needs trusts and their effects and what we can do with those as really educational and informative content to help you kind of get your head around a little bit and get an idea of maybe how to start, where to start, and just get thinking about some of the issues. So our expertise is in helping families who have a family member with disabilities confront and solve the very difficult challenges that they face on a daily basis. And in order to effectively do this, you need two skill sets. You need a soft skill set and a hard skill set. The soft skill set are all of the emotional intelligence types of categories. It's listening. It's having a little bit of intuition. It's being patient. It's being understanding. Sometimes you have to be a little bit of a psychologist. And all of these skills are organized by, a very deep empathy. You have to kind of put yourself in other people's shoes. The other skill set are the hard skill sets. That's the spreadsheet stuff: cash flow mapping, financial planning, tax related issues, and investment portfolio construction. I think that the most important skill sets that your care team should bring, or a family's care team should bring to this, are the first ones. That's the soft skills, because it's the soft skills that can influence and affect people's behavior. And the more that you can affect behavior, the more you can control the outcomes. So I thought I'd try to bring a little bit of this to life for you and talk about some of the challenges that we're dealing with on a daily basis, and some of the challenges that our families are dealing with on a regular basis. And it's really important as a member of a care team, whether you're the investment manager, whether you're the attorney involved, whether you're a caregiver, it's really, really important to be engaged and be flexible so that you can help a family manage the daily circumstances that are ongoing and changing on a consistent basis, like I say, on a daily basis. An individual who is severely disabled and requires help in every component of their daily living. This is an individual that's lived years beyond their life expectancy, and there is a special needs trust in place to help them pay for some of these expenses. As an investment manager, you have timeframes that you construct a portfolio around. You have spending rates on which you construct a portfolio around. Those timeframes is, for example, in this instance, have been extended dramatically. So the result of that is that we have to be extremely careful. We have to have this portfolio continue to grow, but also we have to accommodate for what it's supposed to do, which is to help enhance the life of the individual and cover expenses. This is an individual, as I mentioned before, that's lived, beyond their life expectancy. So there's some challenges that are associated with the actual management of the portfolio to keep up, to keep up with spending over time. Other issues are that we're seeing, we see are folks that have significant mental health issues. So the challenges that we're facing and the challenges that the families are facing are a part of their daily lives, and it really requires a very strong sense of collaboration and interaction among all the care team members. So with that, I'm going to get into a little bit about what a special needs trust is. A special needs trust is complicated in its construct, but it's very, very simple in its idea and purpose. And the idea behind a special needs trust is to set up a trust whereby you can improve the quality of life of the beneficiary without compromising the government benefits that they're entitled to. There are other circumstances when a person may not qualify for government benefits now, but they're unable to handle their finances. And because of their situation, they may become eligible in the future to take those benefits. So in some cases, we use a special needs trust in those circumstances to make sure that a person could be protected in the future to get benefits if they qualify in the future. So What's the purpose of a special needs trust? Well, it's to enhance the quality of life of the beneficiary. And by doing that, you're also enhancing the quality of life for the caregivers as well, making life easier. But I think one of the things to do here is to kind of give you an example of who might need special needs trust. So as I mentioned, it might be an individual who needs 24-hour care. It's a person, as we just described, that maybe can't handle their own financial circumstances, a person with a disability that enables them or prevents them from, prevents them from working. And a special needs trust is set up to cover additional expenses that may not be covered within the realm of government benefits. For example, medical and dental expenses that are not covered elsewhere, equipment like wheelchairs or specially equipped vehicles like vans, therapy, training, education, travel. And very often when there's travel involved, you need a companion, recreational activities and entertainment activities, and legal expenses. Those are the kinds of things that get covered with a special needs trust. So they're very, very important because if a family does not have a special needs trust in place, the individual may not qualify for government benefits. It doesn't take much to disqualify from government benefits. A good example would be, let's say a beneficiary got a settlement, and that settlement was, let's just say, $15,000. That $15,000 would disqualify them from getting government benefits, because even though $15,000 is not necessarily a lot of money, it's still enough where that would disqualify them from getting benefits, and they would have to spend down their own assets to get the government benefits. So I'll go to types of special needs trusts here. Effectively, there's two types of special needs trusts. The first one is a first-party trust, and a first-party trust is one that is funded by money from the beneficiary. So in that scenario I just outlined, the beneficiary got a settlement for X dollars. That settlement is used to fund the trust. The second type of special needs trust is a third-party trust, and that is a trust that's funded with money from someone other than the beneficiary. Now, keep in mind that these trusts are established so that you can have money set aside to enhance and improve the life of the beneficiary without disqualifying them from government benefits. The caveat to that is that in a first-party special needs trust, the government says, we're going to let you use this outside money, we're going to let you use this trust to enhance, and you're going to get your benefits, but the deal is that you're going to pay us, when the trust terminates, you're going to pay us back all the money that remains left in the trust. So a first-party special needs trust is subject to payback provisions. A third-party trust, which is money that comes from the grandparents or a friend or a family or something other than the actual beneficiary themselves, is not subject to payback provisions from the government. So our work, when we're working on these scenarios for families, we're engaged predominantly with two constituents. The first is the family, and then the second is the trustee. The trustee is the administrator of the trust. The trustee can be, in our case, in many of the trusts that we work on, the trustees are the ones who actually draft the trust because they are legal experts and they are special needs attorneys, and this is what they do. But a typical trustee is going to be concerned about the following things. These are the really important items that need to be kept in mind for the trustee. And that's first and foremost is, what are the beneficiary's short-term needs? What are their long-term needs? What are their routine cash flow needs? Other issues are housing, transportation. Are there any resource restrictions for a specific program that they may be involved in with the government? And then who are the caregivers? Are there replacement caregivers? And what is the basis of the beneficiary's special needs? Are they physical? Are they cognitive? Are they psychological, or a combination of the two? And so much of it depends really on the particular trust. So for example, if a beneficiary is institutionalized or living in the community, that will affect, the different scenarios and issues that a trustee has to deal with. So the trustee really, it's very, very important that the trustee is not only somebody that cares for the beneficiary, but it's a person that has distinct expertise in this particular area. So let's talk about, a trust can be funded in a whole variety of different ways. Life insurance, cash, stocks, funds can be managed. Real estate is another way of funding these trusts. When a trust it's very, very important also to not fall into the trap of creating a trust and then not funding it. That actually happens. So when the trust gets created, it's extremely important that it actually gets funded. Sometimes it's such a process that things can drag out, and next thing you know, trust hasn't been funded. Once it does get funded, this is where we really kind of kick into gear and start putting together the portfolio construction. That means portfolio construction is another way of saying figuring out what investments we need to put into that portfolio to help them grow, to help the trust grow, to accommodate for person's expenses, to deal with spending rates in the trust, and also keep it as safe as we possibly can, meaning to mitigate volatility as best as we can, market volatility. We've seen the market go way up and, way down in 2020, way up in 2021, 2022, it's back down again. How do we manage this volatility, outpace inflation, keep up with spending rates? And that's the role we serve in conjunction with and in collaboration with the care team. So generally speaking, the people that should be involved in this process is an attorney that actually really does specialize in the areas of special needs trust. It's a very specialized area. Very often attorneys are eager to take on something, but I think it's really, really important that the person that you're working with to help draft these trusts are a person whose sole sort of practice is involved in this area. They should be an attorney from your state, because all these states have different rules with respect to government benefits. It's always a good idea to have an accountant, a financial advisor. That's our role to do the soft skills and the hard skills of financial mapping. And then it's always helpful to have advocates and people who can help in applying for and maintaining Social Security benefits.
Dwight, before we move on, I wanted to ask a little bit more about the strategy on keeping those. So once a trust is funded, the strategy for keeping those investments viable throughout that individual's life. What does that kind of look like for you personally?
So what that looks like for us and for me personally is that's a process. It's not so much a set of rules that you just follow, but they're mandates that you're aware of. So for example, you have to be highly engaged. We have to be highly engaged with our clients and our clients' caregivers and the whole team to really understand what the cash flow needs are going to be and how to construct the portfolio to accommodate that cash flow, but all needs, but also build it so that it outpaces inflation over time. So we might make adjustments. We're not worried so much about benchmarking against, let's say, an index like the S&P 500. We're trying to benchmark against the client. So once in the family, and that what that means is that if there's certain issues within a family where we know that there could be a huge expense as a result of anything, and these things come up all the time, we're going to build that into our model. We're going to say we're going to have cash or cash equivalent, something that's not exposed to market volatility or exposed to any kind of a loss scenario, for money that's going to be used anywhere from 1 to 3 years out. And we can build some parameters and some risk tolerances around that. So each family, in each circumstance requires its own analysis. And we would call those analysis, a value at risk analysis, cash flow analysis, scenario analysis. And this is a process that we continually engage in as market conditions change. And the prognostication, let's say, for example, we're going to be facing a recession. I mean, that's informing the way we're approaching the portfolio management now. We want to be looking ahead instead of reacting in the moment. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that does. And then I'm assuming that I know that we've talked a little bit about this. Do you work with many parents, or you said you worked with a firm? Are the parents generally not part of the picture anymore? Have they passed away?
No, most of the scenarios that we're working with, the trustee, the folks that have drafted the trust, and the trustees, they're professional trustees. And they're also the folks that this is a law firm in particular, they have a division of them that specializes in this area in particular. So we're working with them, but we're also working with the families. The families are always brought in, the parents, the caregivers, everybody's brought into the scenario, into the situation, into the conversation, the discussion, the decision making. And that's why I was trying to emphasize that whole soft skill thing before, because there's sometimes competing agendas, multiple different folks with different personalities that have different ideas about the way they want to get things done. And then you have the beneficiary that needs the results.
Well, it sounds like a real collaborative approach.
It's and it really should be a collaborative approach. It should be. It shouldn't just be one, let's say, trustee or one fiduciary trying to figure it all out. It requires, good brains all kind of thinking in the same direction and pulling on the rope in the same direction, so to speak.
Well, I want to thank you for being here, Dwight. What an interesting conversation we've had today. I want to thank our attendees for being here. Thank you so much for attending, and look for an email soon, as I said, with a link to the replay of this event. If you came in a little later, you can watch that replay. Here at Advice Chaser, we're all about helping you find a financial advisor who's a great fit for your life and your financial questions. Our matching service is free to you, and every one of our advisor partners has committed to offer a free initial consultation to anyone we introduce them to. Find out more by going to advicechaser.com and clicking on the link to find an advisor. Well, everyone, thank you so much for coming, and we will see you at another webinar soon. Goodbye, everyone.
Okay, bye.